So with that, deep breath, deep breath. First of all, I wanted to say why I wanted to do a session or a series on subtle body communication. And it's mostly because not only do I live and breathe it every day, all day long, but gosh, when was this? This is December, probably in early November-ish. I was doing a morning session and the guides, I'm trying to remember a little bit of how they said this, but basically your time of channeling frequencies to help others be pulled out of their malaise, is the way they described it, has come to a close. You are to focus on channeling the frequencies that are coming in to propel humanity forward and to create a trail of knowledge from your life experience so that others can partake and understand in their own way, but to share from your viewpoint. So I don't think I'm alone in this. I think so many of us that are in service and have been in service are sort of getting this instruction. And so I thought about, well, what is it that I do that, and how I work and how I see and how I've been listening to internal guidance and following the steps all along. And it goes beyond intuition. So I recognize that when I am in service, or I'm tuned in, or I'm receiving instruction or energy, I'm in a full-bodied field of light that is palpable. I can feel it. I certainly can sense it, taste it. I can move, I can project, I can receive inside that field. And so this goes, in my view, beyond the simple concepts. And I'm not implying to say that intuition is simple. It's not. It's very complex. But I've just had decided, well, this is actually communicating on the subtle levels of existence and communicating with higher realm beings and getting into those, discerning about the time-space continuum, and also what constitutes the soul's highest expression. How do you get there? Those are all sort of incremental tools. But the foundation of any of that and all of that is sensing, feeling, and being aware of and immersed in subtle body communication. So I decided that my contribution, and I'm sure with many, many other voices around the planet, this is the time, especially as we go into 2026 and beyond, the atmospheric conditions, if you will, are changing. We're moving away from sort of like the coarseness of speaking from and receiving from and projecting from our mental, emotional mind. The mental mind, when you get into subtle body communication, is so loud, frankly, and so kind of coarse in a way. And so you begin to recognize which levels and layers of consciousness are you both receiving and telekinetically communicating with and for and to. And so what I also recognize is we're all doing this. This is not magic. This is not rocket science. We are all doing it. And I hope in this very sort of framed out introduction, you'll kind of get a sense of where I'd like to go with this. And of course, knowing that this is to be fluid and flexible because spirit is in charge, I just want to say that this study, this exploration, and this practice, I have a lot of practice embedded in this 3-part course. And it's really very simple in terms of material, but it's also very nuanced and layered, which is where I want to propel this forward for the deepening of the well, if you will, through a practice circle. So I'll share with you a little bit about that. So, subtle body communication, awakening to your energetic language is the name of the course. Okay, so for starters, the subtle body is the ultimate communicator. We sense, we feel, we know, and again, we're immersed in the energetic world, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's the ultra-sensory perception that leads us to communicate non-verbally, telekinetically. So I think the difference between, and I'm going to kind of say this now, between intuition is a knowing, you receive a knowing, but it's not necessarily communication. It's a knowing. So it's a fully bodied experience that teaches us about the unseen world, which I love, by the way, and I know many of you do also. So this picture here, which I'm sure this is probably sunlight coming through, but as this person is raising her hands, as we often do in community, to sense and feel the energy that's coming in, this picture is just depicting the subtle energy field that is present. And the key points, again, to say it again, is the subtle body is the ultimate communicator. It's about ultra-sensory perception that leads us to nonverbal telekinetic communication. And I've often said, I say it a lot, that spirits do not communicate in words. They communicate in heart-mind projection. And it's a full embodied experience. The words and the intention of the words are translated actually through our mental mind. So we kind of catch a wave of frequency, we integrate it through our human energy system, and then we receive it. In my case, I speak it out loud to the person I might be serving. And then there is a reverse communication. Whenever I receive that level of communication through pure thought and awareness, and I translate it, the mental pictures, for instance, I'm very aware that being, that spirit, that ascended master, that angelic, that ancestor is in a very connected communication with me. And so I'm getting a feedback loop. And it happened a lot today when I was in session. It was really quite remarkable how instantaneous the affirmation that came in. Yes, that's right. And of course, I get what I call true north spikes through my body. And that's like, it can happen very quickly, but the more seamless it is, the more that I know that what is being said or how I've received something is actually true. And someone else, the person I might be speaking with, might say something, and I'll get that hit of energy. And that is telekinetically giving me a wealth of information, but more importantly, it's giving me a tremendous affirmation. And so the key point here, the final key point in this presentation, is a fully bodied experience that teaches about the unseen world. So this work, this course, this practice is designed to really get us very clear about what's actually happening, knowing that everybody is going to be different. We are different. We do discern. We develop our intuitive senses. Some may hear, some may get a direct knowing. And I do maintain that once a person starts to sense and feel and let go of our time-space continuum, as in past, present, future, and we're just present, the field becomes very obvious to you. And of course, this picture depicts that we have access to everything. The guides have said from the very beginning that whatever you truly, your heart desires to know, you just simply ask the question and you receive it energetically. And then energetically, you receive the frequency of the answer to that question. And for some of us, it plays out in synchronicity. It plays out in a direct knowing. It plays out in a conversation that might happen. It may play out in our dream state. But the bottom line is, whatever we ask in earnest of the universe, it's ours to receive. And so I also recently found myself explaining to somebody, as a channel and as a person that has set intention for highest service, I cannot and will not be a busybody. I can't be looking in on other people, because that's actually not very aligned. It's not aligned, actually. So the only thing that I set my intention for is highest expression, and to bring those frequencies in that represent a soul's highest expression to fulfill one's embodied purpose. And other people may have many other impressions, but I find that my discernment is so important to determine. And so what is the subtle body? And we'll talk about that further and get into greater detail as we go through the series. But it's actually the energetic field beyond the physical form. So we think of our physical body that we can touch. So we have a tactile sense of who we are, what we are. And I maintain that most of us actually don't really have a clear viewpoint, an actual understanding of our physical form. Many of us are living inside of an 8-year-old body, a 12-year-old body, a 20-something-year-old body, a traumatic life experience body, a wishful thinking kind of way of being. And so we sense that about ourselves. We hold ourselves a certain way. And that's something that the more that we understand and make peace with and really get clear about our physical form, then we actually can use it as a communication instrument that it's actually designed to be, to experience this world in a very tactile way. And the chakra system, I was so delighted to listen back to Tiffany Chalmers' presentation on the chakras for the Monday night Lotus of Light activation call, where she talks about that our chakra system is changing, that we're living more out of the heart coherency field. And, that's really interesting to me, because so much of what the guides have said is we're soon to get to the place where we won't know hatred or malice or resentment. It won't exist. And those lower chakras help us to stay grounded and rooted, and they also hold our life experiences in them. But the chakra system is changing. So we'll also talk about the light body architecture, and we're going to talk about the interconnected layers to the cosmos. So I wanted to show you pictures of people that are really vibrant and in the flow. So common experience you may not have recognized. Sensing someone's emotion upon entering a room, feeling drained or energized by certain people or places, experiencing physical sensations during meditation, and receiving intuitive downloads. So I know everyone here has experienced at least one of these 4 things, if not all of them. And so the practice part of what I'd like us to entertain is just becoming much more aware, and to be able to get to the point where we can kind of pinpoint what's happening in the moment. And of course, I love watching children because they're so free. They're so free with their movement, their emotions. They could be so happy in one moment, and the next moment they can be upset or crying, and then the very next moment they're up and running and playing together. And I actually think that's actually how the human energy system is meant to be. And yet as adults, we get very caught up in the supposed tos and the have tos of the world. So the benefits of developing this awareness. I've mentioned that subtle body communication is more of a much bigger environmental communication system. And by developing that awareness, I feel that it enhances one's intuition. You'll find, hopefully through practice, having realized clear energetic boundaries, improved relationships, because you'll experience your dynamic with others from a very different full-bodied dynamic and perspective. And it will cause you to realize more of an accelerated spiritual development. And you'll develop the ability to navigate multidimensional consciousness, which, by the way, is my absolute positive favorite thing to do in all the world in terms of the intuitive world. I absolutely love to communicate multidimensionally, from higher realm to lower realm, to the ancestral realm, to the archangel realm. And beings, I think what happens is when they understand that there is a willingness and a desire, they come around more and interface. But once you get a communication link, I have to say that you develop one way of communicating, and then you branch out and you accept another and another and another. And before you know it, you're just in the field. It's like you're stepping into a room that has all kinds of different properties that are not connected to necessarily or reflecting the physical world in the moment. And that's because when you step into multidimensional consciousness, the timelines, the sense of time, past, present, future, suddenly disappear. So what you find yourself doing is paying attention. And this is what I do, just my personal way of understanding time, is being a student of history and architecture. When I see beings, when I see people, when I am being given images, I pay really, really close attention to how they're dressed. And that kind of gives me a sense and the feeling of it. And whether it's someone coming from one culture or another, spirit will absolutely show you or give you a sense of the impression, the visual, the energy, and the feeling of the time when you just hone in on one particular aspect of what you're being shown or told. And then it's like an envelope that opens up, and suddenly you see more detail and more things about the situation. And the being, once the person or the ancestor begins to recognize your energy signature, there's an awareness, and they begin to connect and communicate back and forth. And like I said, I absolutely love that. When that first started occurring in the session work, it's only because someone asked me, and I began to recognize a name has vibration, a date has vibration, a place, and of course, you're connecting heart to heart, which is the most beautiful thing about the whole experience. And of course, this is, I hope and pray that this is our stance in life, which is being in awe and wonderment and prayer and meditation for the beauty of the natural world and all that's available to us as we stay true to ourselves and open, begin to go through life after we've sort of shed a lot of the heavier skin from earlier times, and just be open. So I also wanted just to share what you'll learn in the 3-part series. First of all, the overview of the foundations. And foundations to me these are the really basic skill sets that we all practice, and we'll bring them into clear, kind of a more clear focus. And then we'll begin to go through development and more of an advanced integration, because I'm sure that I'm speaking to my peers, and everyone has a different heart set and mindset and way of communicating, way of experiencing. But I hope to, and what I've planned is that we will go through a common experience and then be able to put them into practice and to support one another as we go. So part 1 of the foundations of subtle body awareness is the anatomy of the subtle body. What actually is it? And I've been so completely blessed to go from feeling completely overwhelmed by spirit and learning how to slow this rushing river down that connects with me. And from that, meeting different people along the way that have helped me to understand what I know and what I see. And I'll certainly be inviting some of those people in to the practice circles to share as guests in our circles through the year. I'll go over the types of subtle body communication, and the various avenues of expression of communication are varied and yet quite profound. I tell people that once you get a visceral understanding of the field, the subtle body field, there's no missing when you're in it. You'll also understand that when you think you're in the field and you're not, what are the signs to look for inside yourself to know that you're not? And I watch people all the time who present themselves as being in the field or speaking from the field. But with inner sight, you can tell that they're vibrating. Actually, they're not able to hold and calibrate their energy to the subtle field that they're connecting with. So therefore, there's kind of like a crisis of understanding. So they end up relying upon their knowledge, their wisdom, and we all, I'm assuming that we can all feel what that is. We can all feel when someone is doing that. And I have to say, I've prepared notes here, and I'm reading from my notes, my outline, and yet at the same time, I'm very aware that I need to pay attention to this energy signature that I'm connected with, because if I don't do that, I'm not really being of service. And I explain it like moving chairs around on the deck of the Titanic. If you're not aware and you're not connected to the subtle energy field, then you're not really receiving higher frequencies that actually guide you through life and actually help to guide others through life. So part of this practice is to gain confidence in recognizing the field, how to calibrate yourself to stay in the field, and to entrain to those higher consciousness grids that keep you not only in the field, but also inspire you in a way that no other way of learning can do, in my opinion. And of course, part of that is we need to do our inner work. So the clearing is incredibly important, but we don't need to get overly cautious or consumed by it either. But I'll go through that, what that is, how that is, and demonstrate how you can tell the difference. And again, we all have that sense of malaise, like when we just can't seem to be clear or connect. We start to say to ourselves, maybe something's happening in the world, and maybe something is happening inside of me. And so oftentimes we discern how it comes our way that we've got to do a clearing, not only on our environment, but most importantly on ourselves. And so with that, the importance of discernment is, I would say, my middle name is discernment, my last name is discernment, and actually my first name is discernment. No matter what we do, how we do, when we do something in terms of full-bodied awareness and begin to communicate on the subtle levels, discernment is absolutely essential. And there are some ways to really practice this also, which leads us to practices. Part one is to put these things into place. So with that, so part two is about developing communication channels. And it takes, I'm going to say, connection, which happens in the nanosecond of receiving an imprinting of a spirit, a guide, a higher realm being, an ancestor. And to be very intentional, you set the intentional field up, and you just simply don't allow anything that does not represent that higher intention that you've set. And you're always looking. But for me, I've learned that once you get the energetic imprinting, once you get the energetic alignment going, there's a kind of a little bit of a handshake that happens, and then then there's sort of a let go and a flow that happens. And the more that you align, the more that you allow, the more that you receive, you begin to recognize that what you're actually doing, you're immersed in the field, and you literally are telekinetically communicating. It just so happens that we are in a body. So if we are sharing impressions with another person, which I think is a really fantastic practice, that it helps us to begin to define what we are perceiving and what we are receiving. And the practice is to be among our peers, so our peers can witness whether the person is staying in the field or not, and to provide that kind of loving feedback as we're practicing. And to recognize in the second point here that the heart as the primary portal in which all this sending and receiving telekinetic communication is taking place. And I have to say, it's taken me through the years about reading energetic signatures. I've developed a kind of a process for that, and I'd love to share that with you. And I'm sure you also have a process for recognizing the energetic signatures when different higher realm beings are showing up. And very recently, I have to say, one of my learnings this past fall, where the guides told me, and I shared with this, we're not to focus on the names. Many of us are programmed through our learning, through our understanding, through our fear of the unknown experiences. We place labels on what we perceive as good, bad, right, wrong. And that actually does get in our way because our mind is getting involved. And so to pay attention to the heart, which is the central intelligence of the soul as we are embodied, and feel the contraction or the expansion, which is as simple as it gets. And if it's contraction, we ask ourselves, what is this? And if it's expansive, then we know that it's love. It's love presenting. If it's contraction, it could be a couple things. It could be our fear of the unknown. It could be a lack of understanding. And it actually could be something that we just need to fortify the field and recognize that we're actually really, really powerful beings. If we each command our airspace, if you will, and create an intentional field, that is what we can trust. The more that we trust it, the stronger it gets, because our signature in the subtle world shows up very, very clear. It could be soft and gentle, compassionate, but your signature is unique unto yourself. Nobody has your signature. You can't put 2, 3, 4, 5 people together and say, oh, these people are exactly alike, so therefore that's who I'm working with, that's who I'm talking with. That the guides have said really early on, as early as 1987, when I first started being guided by these ascended masters, they were very clear about that. Every single soul on the earth has his or her own unique signature. Even twins have their own unique signature. So that's what they said. We can find you anywhere, no matter where you are, in any world, in any galaxy, in any star system. We can find your signature anywhere. And I actually know that's true, because someone can give me the name of someone. It could be a first name. It could be say A when they're thinking of their loved one or whatever, and I can go find them and find out where they are and see where they are and And if they're ready and willing to communicate with them, and the only reason why I can do that is because they have a unique signature. And so I'd like to practice that. I'd like to share kind of how that is with you. And this actually leads to communication across time and space, which I have really been lately loving the learning. Spirit is teaching me so much about this. And you all may have heard me talk about probabilities, quite about global probabilities because of collective consciousness. And I have to say, my focus of my learning lately, I would say probably for the last 6 or 8 months, has been on timelines, time-space continuums. I think in part, I may not, I'm sure I don't understand. I understand a little bit of this, not a lot of it. But it's because we are shifting and morphing so much. And with each time-space continuum, the frequency bandwidth of a soul in time and space, their choices shift and change. And so we're able to move into various, I'm going to say, spaces, realms of light that are in our individual or collective future. And that's what perhaps the more of the psychic understanding is, or past life. But this actually feels different because it's dynamic and it's happening in the moment. And finally, in this part 2, it's about really learning the language of the body. And I think this is more about the somatic aspects of how we receive, how we use our bodies as a bit of a receivership and also a bit of a tuning fork experience, where the way that we receive, or the way that spirits communicate with us, how that shows up in our body, and how it's not necessarily us, and oftentimes it is not us, it's something or someone else or some other energy that we have, whether it's on a conscious or subconscious level, allowed to gain access into our energy body. And so we'll put that understanding and practice into play and to support each other as we learn as we go. And of course, I love water and I love movement. And I feel like when I'm in those upper worlds, the sense of gravity is kind of a moot point. It's about the flow. So I just wanted to put this up as a reminder that when you're in this concept and this field of light, you are in such a timeless space of flow. And the waveform, as we trust, is going to take us anywhere. And yet, as we let go, we still know that we totally are in charge. So part 3 of this series is about advanced integration and application. So as we kind of master and experience the foundations and get our navigational gear shifts going, we are going to focus more on the multidimensional communication. And we're going to engage in group energetic work. And those of you that have been with us and doing the activation work, we're all about this. I absolutely love to be in community doing this work. And And there are ways to navigate this spiritual immersion that begins to happen when you shift your awareness away from linear time and things and dates and places and the mental aspects of what's happening in life. And that brings a whole other host of ways that your body begins to shift and morph and integrate. And so there's all kinds of, I'm going to say, processes that can ease the burden of responsibility, if you will, to take really good care of yourself. And of course, this leads to the frequency upgrades and shifts. I think a constant hum of connection that happens in our communities and communities, spiritual circles across the globe is what is happening on the planet? How is the frequency shifting us? And of course, with this spacecraft coming into our atmosphere, or the cosmos, our greater cosmos, we're starting to talk about that. How can an external force that feels an awful lot like us on steroids, what is that? What's happening? What is this inner stirring happening inside of us? And how do we manage that? How do we upshift with it? And of course, I go back to the surfer riding the big wave. Is we've got to go with it as we recognize that it's really conspiring for our highest good. And so part of part 3 is really focusing on the practical application. And then how do you maintain your mastery of this? How do you move forward? And of course, I love peer group learning. I love the support circles of the sacred circle and the learning circles. And what I have been doing is just going back through my journals and looking at all the different ways that I was asking Spirit, what is this? How is this? How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to move this way and that way? And I have isolated those. I pulled the answers to that in terms of the advice that the guides have given me over the years. And they run in patterns of self-love, self-actualization, speaking one's truth, even when it's very scary, and putting yourself in an environment that is not comfortable for yourself, and yet it represents a higher frequency shift. And then giving yourself permission to step up to your own occasion. And so that takes practice and that takes courage. And it's lovely to do that in a community of light where there's tremendous support. And then we have, this is really more of the world that I live in, and I love it. I love to see the centers of light, the communities of light, the light beings, the angelic beings manifest to reveal themselves. And I have to say that this is just an example of one of the kinds of ways that when I see, it's just this very soft energy of the upper worlds, of the higher frequency fields. And yet, as you notice in this picture, there's also detail. So it's not just amorphous. There is detail as you communicate and as you reach across the great divide, as I say, and realize that there are so many different worlds than this world. And it's not just born from our imagination. It's actually living, breathing consciousness manifesting as we are. So with that, after I move through these 3 parts, I am planning to offer for 2026. I was really, again, getting quiet. Where is my focus to be? And I got very clearly that it was to be in that space that I love, which is the offering for those that want to come together. These are going to be peer-led circles, just a weekly, as we're going through this 3-part series, to put into practice what's being shared, with weekly circles for maintaining focus and practicing your skills, and a brief sharing. And that's another thing that I've learned over the years. The guide said if you can put it into what you're sensing and feeling, into the mental field, then it's like strengthening a muscle. And that's why we want to share, because the practice and the sharing are really one and the same. And then from there, after these 3-part series is complete, that it moves into a monthly circle of 120, 90 minutes, so that people can go into a deeper level of integration and extended practice. And again, these are going to be peer-led circles, so that no one person is sort of in that space of guiding. And of course, I'll be there. I'll be very much a part of it. And I will be inviting people not only in the circle to share, but also individuals that have spent their lives focusing on different components of this to come in and share. And so that's what I wanted to share with each of you tonight. And of course, the dates that I have in mind on this is session 1 is January 21st. Session 2 is February the 4th. Session 3 is February 18th. These are 2026, of course. And then the circle group meets for those times in between, and continues. The second Friday check-in begins May 2026. And so what I'm hoping that this is going to do is give us some continuity and some depth for those of you that would like to go deeper into this subject matter and develop it as a skill set. That would be absolutely lovely. And so this, in short, is the newest learning circle that is going to be a part of the Amplify network. So if you're in the growth and expansion part of the membership, this absolutely comes as a part of your membership. And if you're not, then there'll certainly be a link there that I'll provide for you if you'd like to join for a small fee. So with this, I consider this my service, my heart, my joy. And if this is yours to do and you're curious and you're wanting to jump in on this, you're absolutely welcome. And the only requirement that I'm going to ask of folks, you'll see a link that'll go out for those that are not a part of the Amplify community, but it will be your commitment to not only go through the 3 sessions, but also to continue in your practice in circle, knowing that not everybody can meet every single time, but to, in general, make a commitment to show up and be present. So thank you so much, and you all take care, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye for now.